Alright, so I will be doing a sonnet from Petrarch that I've kind of like already done, but this time I have a ton more to say about it than I did in my discussion board. So I'm going to go ahead and start with reading the sonnet 189, and then I will kind of describe what I think it means afterwards. My ship laden with forgetfulness passes through a harsh sea at midnight in winter between Scylla and Charybdis, and at the tiller sits my lord, rather my enemy. Each oar is manned by a ready, cruel thought that seems to scorn the tempest in the end. A wet, changeless wind of sighs, hopes, and desires breaks the sail. A rain of weeping, a mist of disdain, wet and loosen the already weary ropes made of error twisted up with ignorance. My two usual sweet stars are hidden. Dead among the waves are reason and skill, so that I begin to despair of the port. Alright, so I've kind of already read this poem before, and I've kind of already talked about it a little bit, but to me, it kind of already sounded like the poet was feeling tortured, especially in this first stanza. The poem just has a very glum tone to it, in my opinion. So, as I've kind of already said, I've concluded that the poem is about Laura, especially because in the last stanza where it talks about sweet stars, it is footnoted that sweet stars means Laura's eyes. But it is obvious in the first poem that they are going through a feeling of suffering because it says, my ship laden with forgetfulness passes through a harsh sea at midnight in winter between Scylla and Charybdis. So a ship laden, I looked up, is a ship full of cargo. So if I was in a ship full of cargo passing through a harsh sea at midnight in the winter between these two dangers that Odysseus in the Homer's Odyssey felt in the ocean, I would feel like I was suffering. I would definitely say that it's a feeling of torture, for sure. So that kind of creates a scene of okay, yeah, he's going through something. The poet's going through something, regardless of what it is. And at the very end of the first stanza, they say, my lord, rather my enemy, which that kind of never brings a good thought into my mind when people say that. It kind of makes me think maybe they're blaming the Lord for whatever is going on in the situation, so he's kind of characterizing the Lord as the enemy. In the next stanza, they say, each oar is manned by a ready, cruel thought that seems to scorn the tempest and the end. So basically, this is kind of where I took a whole new perspective of this poem. The first time I read it, I kind of didn't really understand it. Sorry, I'm on the bed, so it's shifting the camera a lot. I apologize. But I kind of didn't take it this way. So it kind of made me see the ship laden as Petrarch's mind. So basically just inside his head what he's thinking. So maybe the ship laden. Okay, let me restart that. That was kind of a bad description of what I was thinking. But the ship laden is the thought or the memory that he wanted to go away. So it's kind of gone. All of a sudden, all this harsh feeling, so the harsh sea, all these things, the barriers that are in front of him are making this thought come back into life, kind of get back into his head, and that's why he's kind of blaming the Lord. He's seeking the Lord, putting all this stuff in his path so that he can't forget the event, which could either be the fact that Laura does not reciprocate the same love that the poet has for her, because we kind of talked about the unrequited love when we did the discussion board the first time. So that's kind of how I'm taking it. I kind of took it as her dying the first time, but I think I've kind of really changed my perspective reading it again. So I have a different thought process on it. And then each oar is manned by a ready, cruel thought. So these thoughts are just there and they're ready. They're whipping at him. They're just taking charge of him whenever they can, and it's just kind of there. I don't really know how else to describe it. It just kind of makes sense to me that they're always there. They're always with him. Just making him remember it. And then it talks about a wet, changeless wind of sighs, hopes, and desires breaks a sail. I kind of took the breaking of the sail as just kind of him breaking, maybe losing hope or desire to kind of forget about it, to kind of forget that she doesn't really love him that way, or love him at all. And then the third stanza, it says, a rain of weeping, a mist of disdain wet and loosen the already weary ropes made of error twisted up with ignorance. So I would definitely take a rain of weeping as like maybe a sobbing. Um, I would definitely consider that crying, especially with them using the word weeping. And then a mist of disdain. I looked up disdain and I'm pretty sure it meant like the feeling of unworthy. So this would be him feeling unworthy, and these two feelings together are kind of loosening up these ropes in him, making him feel like he's not good enough. Just kind of like giving them the feeling of not okay. And then the last stanza where it says, "My two usual sweet stars are hidden, dead among the waves are reason and skill, so that I begin to despair of the port." So, my two usual sweet stars is Laura's eyes. Um, I don't know if this is like the right way of thinking about this, but in my head, it kind of makes sense. How I know like people use maps, but sometimes people use like the stars to kind of like navigate where they're going, especially like a while before my time, I guess. I don't really know how to say that. But they're not there, so he can't use them to navigate. And like the crew doesn't seem to have the skill, because it says dead among the waves are reason and skill. So like they have no reason or skill to get to where they need to go. So they're beginning to lose hope of getting to their destination. So basically all these thoughts that are like bringing back up the fact that she doesn't love him is like making him lose hope for himself in the future, basically. Like, how is he supposed to get by when he knows that she does not reciprocate the same love that he feels for her? So that is pretty much my overall view of the poem, how I see it. Hope you liked it. Thank you.